Welcome back, everyone, on the gravel,
on this beautiful Monday morning.
Oh, yeah.
Post Shanghai, post Chinese GP.
It's another late night of recording for us, but, we're going to get through it for you guys.
And what a 24 hours of racing it was.
It was great. There was so much racing this weekend, so lots and lots to talk about. Starting it off, though, was some of the first news that I read after recording last week, which was the potential of Yuki Tsunoda being on not only Audi's shortlist, but also Aston Martin's shortlist of places to go.
Yeah, that one surprised me a lot. And it surprised me until I really looked into the fact that, we all know that Aston Martin's going to start using Honda engines in 2026. And Yuki is very much a Honda supplied or Honda backed, should I say, driver. So it makes a lot of sense. The Audi one really surprises me, though. I don't know why Audi would be looking out for somebody like Yuki Tsunoda when I feel like Carlos Sainz and Nico Hülkenberg have been very hot prospects for them. But I don't know, seeing Yuki go to Audi and maybe pair with somebody like Carlos Sainz, because he's still probably number one on their short list. That could be a really, really exciting driver pairing. And just to see Yuki in a better car than the RB is something that I'm looking forward to. And I think he deserves at this point. We all know that, though.
Yeah, staying with Audi for a second, the team confirmed that they have chosen the German National Anthem as the anthem to be played after the drivers, which Mercedes should have done. But no, they want to be British, which...
Bit of a T-Lord, but...
That's fine. But, come on.
Just to get the German National Anthem back into the sport, though, Nico Hülkenberg is not winning a race anytime soon, let alone finishing on the podium. But, of course, like we talked about last week, the whole thing with Silverstone and that just area of the UK being the valley of motor racing. It doesn't surprise me that Mercedes uses the British National Anthem when they run a race. That's where all their headquarters are. That's where the factory is. But that leads me to more question the fact that, are Audi going to continue to use the factories that Sauber have already created in Switzerland? Are they going to come into there and, take over all of that stuff? Are they going to build a new factory at some point in Germany, maybe? But, just to get the German National Anthem back into the sport is something that I'm super happy about.
Absolutely. And I think it's just cool national anthem overall. And the more national anthems in the sport that we can hear, the cooler it is, I feel like. Liam Lawson seems to be somewhat getting tired of waiting for a V-Carb or Red Bull seat and might be looking elsewhere. This is paired with the fact that the Kiwi was promised in 2025 for a seat and is the leading contender to replace the struggling Daniel Ricciardo, Jesus. In my extremely professional opinion, I think if he isn't in a permanent seat by the start of next year, that he should take out the possibility of snagging a potential Audi spot.
See, that would blow my mind, though.
If he just leaves Red Bull and is like, yeah, dude, I want to be driving now, and I don't feel like you guys are giving me that option.
It's happened before. But I don't know, to have a young driver and essentially a rookie. I'm still going to call Liam Lawson a rookie next year. To go to a team like Audi, this new and not new, but just, rebranded, repurchased, up and coming team. I think that is, if he was to do that, Audi would be placing a lot of faith in Liam Lawson's pure racing ability. But who knows? I feel like from his 5 races that he did last year, I think he's kind of earned that repertoire. And that chance to maybe compete at a, midfield to top tier team, not go somewhere like Haas or Alpine.
I knew it was coming.
Yeah, it was going to get in here at some point.
Yeah, Lance Stroll is going to be Alonso's teammate until the 2026 season. Reports show that a contract extension could be coming for the wannabe tennis star, and this will ultimately be given another opportunity for him to complain to his engineer about something wrong with the car. Honda, as we know, is becoming the power unit supply, but they are apparently not a big fan of the Canadian driving for them. And they would much like to see a Yuki Tsunoda to come and actually help the 2-time world champ.
I mean, just a proven talent, and I feel kind of bad saying Lance Stroll is not a proven talent. I mean, the guy has a pole position. He's a 3-time podium sitter, but Lance's just incredible inconsistency, which I feel like I don't see anywhere else on the grid, really. Maybe Daniel Ricciardo is another example. I mean, recent time, Daniel Ricciardo has been a great label of inconsistency, but I feel like somebody like Logan Sargent is technically more consistent than Lance Stroll. It's just you don't know if you're going to get one of those stellar Turkey 2021 pole position laps from Lance Stroll, or you're going to get him binning it into the wall or placing, P18 in qualifying when Fernando is fighting for the front row. And I completely agree with Honda in the fact that they should be looking for somebody who's well established.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they're putting a lot of faith, they're putting a lot of resources and money investment into the team. So they do have a say, and they should have a say in what goes on with these seats. And obviously Alonso's seat is safe. I mean, he's re-signed and he's just a very consistent top tier driver. But I think the Honda backing obviously reinforces the push that Aston Martin's making to the top of the grid, and the fact that, Honda also realizes that Lance Stroll just is not that guy to take Aston Martin to, I don't want to say a driver's championship, but a constructor's championship for sure.
I agree with that 100%. Early simulations suggest that the 2026 Formula One cars have the potential to be slower than the current generation of F2 spec cars.
Now, this was something that came out a little over a week ago, but I was kind of just pondering on it and seeing what would develop with this. And I read a good article from the race. I shout them out as always. They put out phenomenal stuff, but they were talking about how the 2026 cars are going to feature movable aero to help accommodate the characteristics of the new 50-50 split between ICE and battery. Now, in the current gen, the ICE is a way more influential component than the battery is. But, in testing and in simulation, when the car is in its most low drag configuration, with the engine at full power, the car is found to be undrivable, given, the rear stepping out so easily when taking corners, or the car just spinning under acceleration on a straight. And that is really dangerous. Acceleration out of a corner is one thing that is down to the driver to respond to those changes throughout the corner. But on a straight, accelerating on a straight and just spinning is very uncharacteristic of a Formula One car, I feel like, in the current gen. And, it now forces the drivers to handle the car in a more slow and conservative manner, thus the potential, lap times being slower than F2 because they are quite literally having to drive the car slower. The car itself isn't going to be slower than an F2 car, but with how unstable and inconsistent it is lap by lap, you are forced to drive the car slower, which really sucks.
That's how it's going to be, though.
They'll refine that though. They have plenty of time to iron out those nicks and those cracks.
Kimi Antonelli partook in his first test at the Red Bull Ring in the W12 this past week, and signs were looking good for the Prima driver. Apparently, day one was cut short to snow, which I find pretty funny. Overall,
I did not hear about. I thought it was rain.
No, it was snow apparently, and. Just to give you guys a reminder that this is one of those places in the world that used to snow a lot and now is in a 70-year drought. So the fact that they're getting snow in April, although kind strange,
of a good sign.
Very, very good sign for just overall. He's also going to be getting another test pretty soon. So that kid's just lapping times, getting used to it, and gonna be a threat to the league.
I was gonna say, I mean, he was understood to have felt super comfortable in it. I heard, some interviews that he had, that he got a lot of running in, that kind of stuff. So it's looking good for Kimi, just to get the experience in it. I feel like, especially with the first test in the W12, that's very different to, testing the W13, which is something in the current regs. This test was specifically just to get on track time. That's all it was, just get comfortable with the car. But, I mean, he was still setting good lap times. So,
downforce setups and all that stuff, too.
Yeah.
So different.
using the battery. I mean, that's like having curves to deploy in F2 doesn't exist. They don't have that whatsoever. So just, getting familiar with that kind of stuff was the goal of the test, and it looked to have gone very well. So I'm happy for him.
How cute is Charles Leclerc's puppy? Let's be real, guys. That dog is a cute pup.
He was posting it all over his stories this week. I was so
cute.
Oh, little tiny dog for Charles. He has his little dog. He has his ice cream shop in Milan. It's so
certified
sweet.
white girl.
Literally. You wonder why everybody likes him and Lando so much. Like, they're just so appealing to everybody.
Everyone can find that just good-hearted. 2023 Impact Report was announced by F1, which was very insightful. Thank you for F1 for posting it, and I'm going to copy straight from them.
Quote, Formula One management.
Yes.
Take it away.
83% reduction in logistics related to carbon emissions thanks to biofuel trucks during the European season. 55% sustainable fuel trial?
Yeah, trialed.
In F2 and F3, F1 took steps towards 100% sustainable fuel in 2026. Next generation's low-carbon energy solution pilot reduced relevant emissions by 90% in the pit, paddock, and compound. Try saying that 5 times fast.
Try saying any of this 5 times fast.
Yeah, it's really hard. 50 fully. This one I found really cool is the fact that, we're college student age. I'm about to graduate, but F1 fully funds 50 students' placements across the industry on track for 2025. To date, they have funded 30 students through the engineering scholarship program, with the first 10 of them taking placements at F1 teams this past year. So that's really, really cool.
Yeah.
75% of promoters used renewable energy to power elements of their events, and 350 students have been engaged through education initiatives, including STEM events and career insights, and obviously F1 Academy, and just them growing the role of women in the sport, which we can always appreciate.
I was going to say, they were going for that whole net zero by 2030 thing, and, reading that impact report that they put out, they're definitely taking the steps.
They're doing the necessary things, and for a company and event that is this large scale but worldwide, it's very important. It's going to take time, and the fact that they're putting this much effort already and have 75% of the promoters using renewable energy at the tracks, that's a big step, and we can take that as a huge win. So. Did you know that in 2012, before the Russian GP, Russian President Vladimir Putin drove the Renault around the track?
I didn't know about that at all.
There's a video of it.
Yeah, so I'm going to need to see that.
And I was utterly shocked by this.
I was going to say, did you just see this like randomly this week while researching?
Yeah. I just was like scrolling through and then saw a beat where it was like, did you know that in 2012, President Putin drove a Renault on the Russian GP? And I was like, what?
See, now, was that would that have been one of President Putin's, what's the word? Requirements for them to host a race? There, I have to be able to drive the car.
Yeah, I imagine to some degree it was just like, let me in the car. But to my point, I want to see one of our presidents do that. Let's just be real. Because
putting Joe Biden in a Formula One car, that's probably not going to go well.
So there needs to be a new requirement on our presidency that they can drive an F1 car.
I can't drive an F1 car.
None of us can. Neck conditioning for the next 5 weeks, brother. Let's get this.
Yeah, last time I checked, I wasn't Logan Sargent.
Yeah. After Ferrari's impressive 3-4 finish 2 weeks ago in Japan, it seems that the SF24 is in a better position to compete with the ever so dominant Red Bull.
But it also didn't seem as though this week,
because of just temperature and conditions overall.
And the repainted track.
Yes.
That resurfaced, repainted.
That's just going to, always throw a curveball to some teams that aren't ready for it. And I think Ferrari was one of those teams that weren't. McLaren was one of those teams that was waiting back for it. So Adrian Newey has admitted that that Red Bull is struggling to find gains on the performance of the RB20, which...
how do you improve a rocket ship?
Literally, bro. It's not NASA, so I can't blame them for, failing to some degree here. And I don't think calling him failing in that sense is
like
even
you're not
appropriate.
failing. You've already created the best car on the grid. If it's not improving as fast as something as a McLaren or a Mercedes is, that's not down to you being a bad car designer. That is just down to your initial product being so robust and refined.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, something like a McLaren or a Mercedes, there's a lot of design faults in those cars that they need to improve on over the years. So you're going to see way bigger updates.
Yeah. Where was we? Oh, the trophy for the Chinese GP is the first wearable trophy ever in the sport, and it pays homage to the laurel wreaths winning drivers would wear in the 60s and 70s.
Which was so cool.
I think that's really cool because, A, it's not only just like, yay, it's a trophy, but like it's paying homage and it's
I wasn't even thinking about the fact that it's wearable. I just thought it looked really cool.
It looks... If you put that next to all of it, like how Max is going to put that on his trophy wall, it's going to stand out just because of how unique it is.
I'm going to hang it on the wall. You can hang it on the wall.
You can hang it on the wall. That's a great idea. That's a
great idea.
Red Bull seems to be continue in communication with Carlos Sainz about a Red Bull contract, but the team has confirmed that he has a very lucrative bid from Audi. Helmut Marko also confirmed that when the team backed Max instead of Sainz, that it really hurt him and the relationship with the team. Yeah, no shit.
I was going to say, obviously, this is back in 2015.
But like, overall, that's going to hurt you. As a driver who, A, has so many familial ties to that team where his dad is a driver for them.
Yeah.
And he's grown up in that program to then just be
pushed aside
for a wonder kid, which that's like, to some degree, you just got to, bite your tongue and move on to it. Like, he has better talent than you. There's nothing you can do about that.
You can't do anything about that.
But
other than improve.
Yeah,
but,
and he has. He went out,
unfortunately,
got better.
in the Red Bull program, there is no room for improvement. You either join and are good, or you're dropped.
Yeah.
But Carlos Sainz wasn't a bad driver at Toro Rosso.
No, he wasn't.
Just Max was so good.
Staying with this point for a second, Christian Horner came out and was like, I don't know what the hell Helmut Marko's talking about. We haven't put a bid on Carlos. So,
I mean, yeah, okay, bid is like not the right word to say. But that's also there's talks. There's talks.
That's him just being like fanning out the fire, I guess. Is a good way of saying it. But just, I don't know. We haven't been talking about him recently, so good job for their PR team to divert everything. But I don't know. I feel overall it's going to be, I don't think Red Bull has the money. If you're paying so many people so much money, and just to keep your business afloat right now with winning so much, you need a lot of money. So
yeah,
I don't think they're going to be able to do it. And I honestly think him going to Audi and getting just a new...
It's not even a new team.
It's not a new team, but just like a
number
new
one
environment.
Driver role.
Yeah.
Also being able to, realistically gun for a number one driver role.
Absolutely. So really, really hoping that his career here in the next few months, A, is solidified in the sport, and B, we just get to see him drive. I like to see him drive,
Me too. I think it's phenomenal.
Audi's been rumored to get Nico Hülkenberg as Carlos's teammate, and I have no problems with this.
I don't have okay. I want to go into this. My apologies, everybody. I want to go into this. I don't have an issue with it. I just feel like somebody like Nico Hülkenberg is very late into the stage of their F1 career. Obviously, Nico Hülkenberg started in the late 2000s, early 2010s. I don't know the exact year, so don't get mad at me. But, unfortunately, Nico has never had a truly front-running car in his F1 career, so there's nothing to really judge him on. Audi could be his first front-running car of all time. Mm-hmm. But I'm thinking, as an Audi, why aren't you looking for a prospect bigger than somebody like Nico Hülkenberg? Not that he's not a good driver, and I really want to reinforce the fact that I think Nico Hülkenberg is a great driver.
He also just, I think, tied the record for most starts without a pole. most race starts without a pole or something?
No, he has a pole. He took a pole position 2010
or without a win. Without a win, I should say.
How about a podium?
Dude,
this guy hasn't even stood on the podium.
That's tough, bro.
I feel bad. I do.
I mean, I think it makes sense that you get just a solid number 2 to kind of help with the car in a sense of just.
I will say, with how long he's been in the sport, his input on performance and setup and all that kind of stuff will be very valuable.
Plus, that's a guy that you can have mentor. Those younger guys that you get in the next 2-3
even
years.
Carlos, to an extent,
to an extent, I feel like, but overall, I think it's going to be way better for those young guys that come in like 3, 4, 5 years.
I was going to say Nico Hülkenberg maybe at some point take a reserve role on, or I don't really know. It's just that's what like has me so kerfuffled about it. It's just. How does he really fit into that team in the long term? Carlos obviously makes sense. He's still young in the sense, that he'll be in the sport for the next 10 years probably. I don't see Nico being in the sport for more than 3 or 4 now. Yeah. So long term, I don't really know what's going on with Nico.
He'll get halfway through the new regulations, and I think if his performance doesn't have a dramatic increase or decrease,
if he doesn't have a realistic chance of stepping on the podium,
literally,
goodbye.
Happy belated birthday to the legend Frank Williams. He would have been 82 years young on the 16th. He was the founder of Williams and the team principal from 1977 to 2022. Saw the team win 117 races, 9 Construction Cups, and 7 World Champions. What a career.
Frank Williams is like the epitome of passion, in my opinion. Behind maybe somebody like, or I guess longevity, like passion and longevity. Mm-hmm. Obviously how long Williams has lasted in the sport. I mean, behind somebody like Bruce McLaren, of course. But Frank's dedication to the sport and creating champions and his love for racing is really what has kept Williams on the grid for as long as they've been on the grid, especially, a few years ago when they were really in the dirt. When
he was also kind of getting older and having more health complications where he had to kind of take a step back from the team.
And when he, team principal had to be passed on to Claire. Mm-hmm. I really respect his dedication to the sport and, giving us what we have. So, and he just deserves our appreciation. Like, I feel like probably my favorite moment Williams-wise, I would say, is, or just, through his entire management of that team, is probably Nigel Mansell in 1992. Like, I thought that season was a very, very dominant Williams car with a super dominant driver. Like, that's like the most notable world championship that I see from Williams. Nigel Mansell in 1992. Obviously, it was his only world championship winning season, but he was phenomenal. That car was so good and so quick and so far ahead of the rest. It really makes me miss the old Williams.
I feel like there's an old quote that he said about that car where he was like, that was the car that I was scared of driving every single week because of how demanding it required from me. Like,
yeah, but also like it's so demanding to the point where, when you learn the car and you put it in, that thing is going to perform so far ahead of anything else that comes in your way on the track.
Which is what happened. And by God, was it beautiful. I love that blue. The Williams blue too,
dude. Or like the camel and the cannon sponsorships on the old Williams, and the yellow, blue, and white. Oh, it was so gorgeous.
That old car just had one of the most, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Recognizable.
I was gonna say,
liveries.
To me, it's one of the most notable liveries in motorsports in general.
Absolutely.
I mean, besides obviously the Marlboro Ferrari, but. Yeah, but seriously, I don't want to keep yapping about this, but just our appreciation to Frank Williams and everything he's done for Formula One and his own team Williams. It's something I want to keep on seeing grow because I want Williams to get back to the front, just to live on his legacy.
That would be sick if there's a sick turnaround in the next few years and they just come back, start winning again. Oh,
that's what matters. And I know he's up there looking down, praying for that.
He's working on it. He's pulling the strings behind closed doors, if you know what I'm saying. Has silly season already started?
Absolutely.
Yes. Alonso said that this is, quote, probably his last contract in the sport. Come on, get real. That man's not retiring anytime soon.
Especially if that car is good.
If that car
is good in 2026, he is extending that contract.
Absolutely. Perez is believed that a 2-year contract extension, quote, makes sense as the new technical regulations in 2026 is the reason for him to keep his seat. What are you talking about, Checo?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Okay, here's the thing. I think quite literally anybody could... Logan Sargent could come out and say, I think it's very important that I keep my seat for 2026 because there's new technical regulations and you need me in the seat because I have experience in the car. That is literally what Sergio Perez is saying. Wait for somebody like Lance Stroll to say that. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
It's so rough.
Like, Perez is a great driver. Don't get me wrong. But that is a BS excuse for him to come out to the media and say, this is why I should keep my seat. I think that is completely unfair. Even to himself. Like, I don't hype yourself up like that.
Staying here, Logan's short fortunes this past weekend is kind of a notable point to put here as well, just in the fact that I think this weekend solidifies them looking elsewhere and starting to implement that.
I was going to say, we are going to get into that soon.
I believe they'll give him Miami, like let him do his home race in Miami, yada, yada, XYZ. And next week after that, someone else is in that car.
I don't want to say somebody else is in the car, but I want to say I don't want to say they go public, but
they announce something. They hint at
something.
Something.
They very much hint on the fact that they are looking for a replacement.
It sucks. This was kind of something that we heard yesterday on the race.
Not even yesterday, today.
Oh, yeah.
Literally today.
Well, we woke up after the race. And
for Imola,
new point system is being talked about in F1 I mean, from what I understand, they're just
go into discussions about it this week, next week.
The only change though is like 8th and 10th place get
but
more points.
Yeah, they're talking about potentially introducing a point system down to 12th place for as early as 2025. And this is something that personally, having watched the sport for the last like at least 5 years at this point, have always felt is a very necessary change, just because the midfield and back markers are so close that, you know, finishing P11, I think about Yuki Tsunoda at the beginning of last year having 4 P11s in a row and getting absolutely nothing for that. I think with how close the field is now, dropping the points down further is a very important point to really reinforce the fact, one, for new fans, the difference between the cars. Because, you know, you're giving midfield and lower midfield cars more opportunities to score points and actually create a visible difference between them on a sheet of paper.
And that's what the F1 commentators were saying was like, in a sense, it's not really going to change anything for the top 4 teams, but for those last 6 teams that are, you know, scraping for points every week, it's going to make the competition for them
better,
way, way more exciting. Excuse me. But it's just like if you have one team scoring 1 point every single weekend, it's going to be like a 5-4-3 competition in the final week. So
I was going to say, like, imagine if we were in a perfect world where the number one, okay, that conflict's over. No, but where the number 1 team finishes 1-2 every week. Mm-hmm. The number 2 team finishes 3-4 every week. XYZ down. None of those bottom 5 teams are ever scoring any points. Like, if the top 5 teams are consistently on it every single week, those bottom 5 teams are never scoring points. And then it makes it look like all of those teams are awful. Mm-hmm. To whereas, dropping the points down to 12th, like Raven said, not only is the competition better as a spectacle and in the car, but from a monetary perspective of fighting for F1 prize money, there's going to be way more thought and effort just put into these races by these lower teams. Yeah. There's not going to be, a situation where literally this weekend with Fernando Alonso retiring during the sprint race, because he had an issue with the car, they retired him because, there's no point in us racing anymore because of this penalty and XYZ. Let's just retire the car. If the points went down further, there's a reason for him to keep racing. It's much easier to get back up to 12th place than it is to get back up to 10th. So I think lowering the points down is better for the sport. Does that mean scoring points from a driver's perspective is less of an accomplishment? Yes. But at the same time, still scoring points is an important thing. I wouldn't discount something like Ollie Behrman's, P7 this year at Jeddah. But I think it's like the highest necessity with the lowering of the point system is just to create a differential between the teams. Mm-hmm.
And that's what they need.
It is what they need.
Because it's not fair that, Haas is getting 1 or 2 points every other weekend.
When they've consistently been outperforming the back marker lower midfield set of teams. Every week this year.
Yeah.
Haas
has been the team that has kind of just been in the background, but something about the cars changed.
Yeah, I think they've been consistently the sixth to seventh best car every single week.
Yeah, that's a safe bet. And for them to go from, one of the last to 6th to 7th in 1 year.
And consistently.
Pretty good. Let's move over to the actual race, shall we?
Oh, yes.
Starting off with practice, we have
one practice session this week. It was our first sprint weekend of the year, which at a circuit like Shanghai, which we have not raced on in 5 years, and with, spoiler for those who didn't watch anything, the threat of rain, this proved to be currently my favorite race weekend of the year. But yes, going into practice, we were catching this on a Thursday night here in the States, and we're sitting there, me, Raven, and our buddy Ethan. We were sitting in Discord watching the practice together, and all of a sudden, just a random red flag comes out. Just random red flag in practice. I'm like, oh my goodness, Logan Sargent's bended into the wall again. No.
Hard cut to fire on the track, baby.
The grass is on fire on the side of the track.
And yeah, I was on fire for about another 10 minutes until they put it out. And then the rest of the day, we just had a beautiful
giant black dot
on turn 7.
They struggled to get a fire extinguisher out there for so long as well.
It's so funny. Where they just needed me, I put out fire before. That's all.
All right.
That's all I'm saying.
It was also noted by Martin Brundle that Alex Albon was noted to be on his 3rd out of 5 allowed gearboxes in the regulations. After only 5 races, if you are allowed 5 gearboxes throughout a 24-race season, on race 5, you should still be on the first gearbox. But with all of these crashes and chassis dilemmas that Williams have had, the gearboxes are being super, super heavily impacted by these crashes.
It's just you're talking from way over a year, so it's really quiet.
I'm locked in. But yeah, so this is obviously something with the regulations where if you really look into them, going over a gearbox allowance, a control electronics allowance, a power unit allowance, that is going to incur a penalty. So when you are going through 60% of your gearboxes, 20% into the season, you're way ahead of the quota, and Alex Albon is now most likely, almost guaranteed, going to be seeing grid penalties at some races now, where he's going to have to say, this is a high-speed track, like let's say Monza, the king of taking grid penalties, where he's going to say, all right, I'm going to have to take a grid penalty, get a new gearbox, and it's a track like Monza, so I can make up all that time again on these long straights. And it sucks, but this dilemma that they're in is the fault of the Williams drivers. So yeah. I don't think you can chalk it up to anything besides that.
No, they were the ones that crashed the car. They're the ones that need. No,
literally. they wouldn't be in this situation if Logan and Alex were not binning the car every single week.
The updated Haas looked good through practice. Nothing to brag or write home.
Nothing
about,
crazy, but definitely something to keep your eye on as the weekend went on.
And then McLaren and Aston Martin were the ones that really eyebrows rose up after Alonso.
Lance Stroll finished FP1 in P1. Let that sink in.
Let that sink in.
That was his best moment of the season. It probably will still be his best moment of the season.
It'll be his only moment of the season. K-Mag's Haas had some upgrade packages on the car, but the other chassis does not have any upgrades because it is the older model. And I don't really think K-Mag's car really was that much faster than Hülkenberg's.
Given Hülkenberg also performed better throughout the entire weekend than Kevin Magnussen, I don't know.
It doesn't really make sense what's happening there with I don't really know who's the 1-2 driver.
To me, personally, I believe Nico Hülkenberg is number one driver at Haas. I mean, Nico Hülkenberg is consistently putting the car, in qualifying at least, higher than Kevin Magnussen almost every week. I do think Kevin has slightly better racecraft than Nico, but when you're putting the car 5 places ahead of your teammate, that racecraft that you have as the second driver on the grid, it's going to take a lot to now catch up to your teammate. If Nico can hold his place, Kevin Magnussen has a bunch of work to do to catch up. So,
Ocon also had an upgraded floor while leaving the better driver at the team with a crappier car. I don't understand. I understand they're both French and, you're trying to make the hometown hero kind of aspect to it.
Yeah, but absolutely.
Just give the better driver the better car. I don't understand it. It's the same thing with
Gasly has been getting screwed over the whole season.
It's just shocking to me that A, he's putting up with this for so long, and B, that he hasn't really come out and complained about it. Because
I was gonna say, if I was Pierre, I would actually be searching for a new seat next season.
Literally,
get me out of Alpine.
Go to I was gonna say go to Sauber, but they're not gonna exist next year. So
Gasly Sainz lineup would be crazy though. That would be really cool to see.
It could be a good lineup.
Both post Red Bull drivers. So who knows?
Maybe he goes back to Williams and becomes teammates with Alex again. You never know.
Well, funny enough, they were actually never teammates.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he replaced him.
Yeah.
He replaced him. Ooh. Well, now they could be teammates.
That would be cool. I would actually love to see them as teammates.
That's going to be in the Formula 25 game story mode.
Breaking point.
Breaking point 5. Anyways.
So, with no second or third practice sessions, the same night, Raven had gone to bed, and I said, I'm going to be very diehard and stay up until 3 in the morning and watch F1 sprint qualifying.
Can't do it.
So I will. Don't worry, I will take this over for you. So of course, I actually wish Raven was up for this. We get 5-6 minutes into sprint qualifying. Random red flag again. Guess what it is? Oh my goodness, the track's on fire again. I don't know what the heck is going on.
Can we remember that this track was built on a marsh? And so the center aspect where the drivers stay is on water.
Yeah, dude, the paddock for this track is so cool if you've ever looked at it.
But B, it was also raining off and on.
That water should have been super wet. I know it was very hot outside.
Yes, but grass retains water pretty well.
Extremely well.
So must be some I'm not saying it.
Laser beam.
Environmental weather beams. I don't know.
But yeah, track lights on fire for a second time at the end of SQ1 with the Mercedes barely making it through, by the way. Yet George and Lewis were really struggling throughout all of sprint qualifying and Grand Prix qualifying, as you'll see later. We also definitely confirmed that Fernando Alonso is a waterbender. My goodness. If that doesn't hint at it, it started pouring in Q3. And we had a very interesting situation of not even the front row or P3 being traded. The pole position time was being traded almost every 20 seconds. It was incredible. But towards the end of SQ3, Lando's lap was 1.26 seconds ahead of Lewis Hamilton in P2 and was deleted. And then you had all of Team LH going crazy on Twitter. Oh my goodness, Lewis Hamilton pole position.
We rise.
Still we rise. We are back. Abu Dhabi 2021. But then later, after the session, Lando's lap was reinstated. The reason it got disallowed in the first place was that Lando had gone off at the final corner. And this is something that Max Verstappen did as well. Multiple drivers went off at the final corner. But typically, going off at the final corner of a track, obviously the current lap that you're on is going to get invalidated. But regardless, that is also going to invalidate the next lap that you take. Because, let's say the Red Bull Ring, for an example, there are many tracks where taking a different line that breaks track limits at the final corner can actually increase your average speed on the straight of the new lap. So, at the Red Bull Ring, you can run super wide on turn 10 and get a way better exit, and you're going faster down the straight, and that makes your next lap way better than the first one. However, at somewhere like China, that last corner is such a tight corner, and it goes into a gravel trap. So Lando went off into the gravel, started a new lap, and then once again set a lap that was 1.2 seconds ahead of Lewis Hamilton. And they realized, it got sent up to the stewards, we have to reinstate this lap. He didn't gain any advantage by starting his lap in a gravel trap. Like, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So his lap was reinstated. Lando took pole position for the sprint. However, what was really cool was that Lando's lap for pole was the second largest margin to second place in the entire turbo hybrid era, which is 2014 to the present, for those who don't know. Only bested by Nico Rosberg's margin of 1.61 seconds over the second-placed Sebastian Vettel at the 2014 British GP. Very cool fact for you guys.
Checo hit a bird on the last straight. I was waiting for that for like 5 minutes, dude. So, on the last straight, he just comes over the radio, and his engineer, whose name is Hubert, was confused over the call, and Checo was just like, yeah, I hit your brother. So good. That was the highlight of sprint qualifying for me, personally. Moving over to the actual sprint race on, what was this, Friday night?
Yeah.
Oh, it was a fun one.
10 p.m.
10
Friday
p.m.
night.
It was
so reasonable time, post-work for those of us in the service industry.
Yeah. My one note.
We were sitting there praying for rain.
Was just please rain. I want rain so bad.
But we weren't really taking notes while we were watching the sprint race. We were kind of just watching it through.
Just giving a little fan moment,
I will say, with the crazy grid we had, first of all, Lando Norris, this really reminded me of Russia 2021. Obviously, Lando starts on pole position. Lewis Hamilton gets a way better jump than Lando does. And Lando decides, in this 360-degree right-hander, yes, I'm going to hang it around the outside on a resurfaced track. And he just goes off the track and loses 6 positions in the first corner. And that literally gives me PTSD to Russia 2021. It's literally against Lewis Hamilton again, and he's bottling it again. So Lando's out the flipping race, 10 seconds in. But then it sets up for this really cool Fernando Alonso fighting Lewis Hamilton ahead with Max Verstappen charging behind from P3. And, of course, Max eventually overtakes the both of them. But then you're left with this Lewis Hamilton kind of breaking away, taking P2 by himself. And then you have Lando Norris pissed off, charging back through the field, trying to go through both the Ferraris, while Fernando Alonso is defending for all of his life against all of them for the last podium spot in this sprint race. We literally got a through goes Hamilton moment at turn 8-9, where Fernando was fighting Carlos Sainz super hard, and then just through shoots
Lando.
No, Sergio Perez.
Oh, it was the other.
Yeah, it was Sergio Perez. So that was crazy. And then you got Carlos and Charles getting pissed off at each other, fighting each other super hard at the end of this sprint race, where Charles was actually coming over the radio like audibly angry, fighting to his engineers and Fred Vasseur that Carlos is driving way over the line and it's complete BS. And he was pissed off. He, even in his interviews post-race, was essentially taking the muck on Carlos Sainz. So like it was a very, very cool and intense, good racing sprint race. But of course, Mafia gives Alonso a 10-second time penalty and 3 penalty points for having contact.
As I say, let's go into that because we didn't really describe what happened there. So Alonso's defending Sainz, and
Sainz actually overtakes him.
Yeah, and they have like slightest of contact, nothing super bad. Alonso gets a puncture, and I believe the bridge wall to Carlos's like front wing got a little damaged. I don't think it was fully removed. But
No, it wasn't at all.
So Alonso ends up retiring because,
they're not getting points.
They're not getting points. There's no time to make up those positions back.
Why grain the car? Why put more stress on the car?
Absolutely. Just let's put our head down and go tomorrow type mentality, which is the right thing to do there. But the FIA decided that not only was a 10-second time penalty not enough, but they gave him 3 penalty points on his super license, which...
For those that don't know, 12 penalty points in a 1-year period on your license is an automatic 1-race ban.
Does this...
Lewis Hamilton only got 2 penalty points for almost killing Max Verstappen in the 2021 British GP. Sorry, I had to say it. Abu Dhabi 2021. That is unbelievable. That is genuinely unbelievable. The penalties that Alonso has been getting recently from the FIA have been incredible. There's this, and you have Australia a couple weeks ago.
Australia last year.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
We were kind of talking about it, and it somewhat feels like they're just doing this to kind of push him out of the sport in a degree.
I don't even want to say push him out of the sport, but what confuses me the most is that the things that Fernando has been getting penalty points for have been hard racing. Yeah, which is what you should be promoting. Racing. Which is what you should be promoting. It's not like Fernando's killing George Russell in Australia. George crashed on his own. It's not like Fernando destroyed Carlos's car. He was perfectly in the limit on his attempt to re-overtake Carlos. I think that was completely fair. Contact, it happens every once in a while. It didn't ruin either of the races. It actually only screwed up Fernando's. I think that penalty and especially the points are so unjust and blown up and hyperbolized. I think it's completely unfair.
Where are the penalty points for Sainz defending the
against
same
Leclerc.
way against Leclerc? So just the consistency. I know I was reading a lot about how a lot of fans are kind of tired of this, we're going to pick the rules this week and not do the same rules next week.
But you're literally seeing it.
Yeah, and that's why people are getting upset, and they have every right to. And I feel like it's just because FIA is in shambles with everything that's happening, and you have drivers that don't like the president of the FIA right now. So maybe this is him encouraging fear into them.
I don't think so.
Don't mess with me type. I don't know.
Don't mess with me or I'm going to ruin the sport. Okay.
Let's go to qualifying, shall we?
It is. Well, actually, it's not race day yet. Oh. It is still Saturday.
Mm-hmm. I went to bed again.
I stayed up for qualifying. Actually, no. I actually went to bed as well, and then I woke up in the middle of the night before work.
You just said screw it.
Literally just watched qualifying and went straight back to bed. But unfortunately, Lewis, after his fantastic sprint race, finishing P2, gets knocked out in Q1 by none other than Pierre Gasly. His first time.
He's getting applause for that.
Yeah. He's first time out of Q1 this year, and he knocks out Lewis Hamilton.
One of the first overtakes, too.
Oh, my gosh. He had his first overtakes this race. I think he had 3 overtakes this race. I was so impressed.
So fast.
But no, Lewis unfortunately got knocked out by Gasly because on his last lap, he had a super big lockup into the hairpin, which not sent him off the track, but cost him multiple tenths of time, which was that barrier to get into Q2. So Lewis Hamilton unfortunately lined up P18 for the main race. But then you have Danny Rick sneaking into Q2 after beating Tsunoda in quali. Could that be his experience at the track? Absolutely. But, it could be the begging of a switch for Danny. So you don't really know. And then, of course, yellow flag in qualifying. I told Raven after the sprint race that I thought somebody was going to have an incident in qualifying. There wasn't any major incident. Actually, there was. But our first yellow flag in qualifying came out. There's no replay of anything going on, and then Alex Jakes comes over the microphone and is like, "Oh, Logan Sargent had a spin." I'm like, okay, this is what I wanted to get into. This is what I wanted to beef about. This is happening almost every week now, and obviously Raven and I said it earlier, but we can't continue with this with Logan Sargent. I think
it's just rough to watch,
and it sucks because I feel like a lot of this is down to them promoting him too early.
Yes, I think 100% agree.
Because if you look at his junior pedigree, he was a phenomenal junior driver.
He needed another few years in like F2, F3 spec cars.
Dude, he did 1 year in F2, and they're like, "Yep,
perfect. We need
Williams.
him. We need him right now." So, I don't know. I feel like it's just the issue of, A, he's young, B, with everything that's happened with him and the team and just the mentality of the team right now, do you feel 100% confident in yourself to be going out there and driving with the idea of like, don't crash this car or we're going to not see our family again for the 5th week in a row? So
you're not going to see a chassis or a seat or the track for another week in a row.
Yeah. There's going to be a change in the next year. So,
yeah.
Let's go to controversy in Q2 because this is where I saw all the highlights when I woke up the next day. So,
we were getting into the second to last runnings on the track. So, Q2 was about halfway, a little bit more than halfway over. And Carlos comes across the final corner to make his start to the lap and spins. He hits the gravel just like Lando did or Max did in sprint qualifying in the rain. But of course, in the dry, it's going to be way more variable. The rain isn't going to, stop you. You're not really sliding as much. You're just hitting it, spinning. The friction is actually there. Mm-hmm. So Carlos's back right tire clips the gravel. He spins out across the main straight towards the opposite wall of the corner he was just in and does honestly a very phenomenal J turn to his back two wheels were about to go straight into the wall, and he did this turn while spinning so that the side of his car hit the wall instead because the least amount of damage was done to the car because of that. He was very clinical and locked in while he was in that spin to cause the least amount of damage on the car. So I was actually very impressed by that.
Yeah.
But it caused a lot of controversy because Aston Martin then decided to launch a protest post-qualifying that while qualifying was red flagged and, Carlos comes back to the pits, he starts driving again, actually sets laps. There was a rule that they were looking at that if a car stops and gets going again during qualifying, they should be disqualified or something like that. I didn't really look into the appeal. I know Raven did more than I.
If the car stops off the track and is deemed immovable in a certain time frame, then it's red flagged. The clock stops for quali. And I think that right there, the clock stopping is the issue for this because the clock stopped and, obviously give the driver some time. He just maybe faced 20 Gs and now is facing reality again. So, give the guy a break.
I was going to say, Carlos was stopped there for over a minute, though.
That's where it is. And so you stop the clock and the car never turned off. That's an important thing to remember.
Yeah.
The car never turned off, but he started driving again and got back on the track, did a lap, and went back to the pits. The argument that I understand it from is that technically he was racing under a stopped clock.
Yeah.
Because you have the red flag, you cannot go on the track and race. But then what do you do? You're not going to wait. You're not going to, if the car's still drivable, you're going to
take it back to the pits. You're not going to say, "Oh, I'm retiring from qualifying."
Yeah, I'm not going to wait till the tractor carries my car back to the pits because it's red
also
flag.
You're done. If the tractor picks the car up, you're done.
So it's just a messy situation.
And then that obviously got denied by the FIA. So it was very interesting to see. But it was a front row lockout, unfortunately, for the Red Bulls. Funny enough, when Lewis Hamilton got knocked out in Q1 by Pierre Gasly, Sergio Perez was P15 in that situation, or in that, what's it called? That section of qualifying, sorry. So Gasly almost was able to jump both Lewis and Sergio. So Sergio barely made it through by the skin of his teeth, and then went on to qualify P2, which I was actually kind of pissed off about. I would have loved to see Sergio get knocked out in Q1 as well.
We all would have loved to see it.
But yeah, so Sergio qualifies P2 after Max taking pole position, of course. But lo and behold, it's not a Ferrari, it's not a McLaren, it's Fernando Alonso in P3. He drove so well in the sprint, so well in qualifying. Like, this guy was a beast. And then I'll let Raven take this one away. You
had both McLarens at the 4-5 with Lando and Oscar, and then Ferraris finishing behind them at 6 and 7. So it was a really, really good just opening.
And you had Bottas in P10. Yeah. He was so good. And this is a track that he's had a lot of success at in the past.
We were talking about this during the race, where it's like Bottas has been so unlucky with just engine failure after
Sauber
pit stop after car mechanic, like stuff that's not his fault.
It just makes me very happy. At least at that part of the weekend, I was really happy for Valtteri. But finally, we make it to Sunday or Saturday night for us, I guess, because we watched this at 2 a.m. on Saturday night, Sunday morning.
Yeah, we're tired, but we're here, so that's all that matters.
This wasn't the only race we watched in the middle of the night last night.
Once again, a clean start from the field with Alonso going around the outside of Perez and the first long right-hander to knock P2.
So relaxed first portion of the race. Max kind of pulled away from Fernando, and with that, obviously Fernando still holding Sergio back.
4 seconds after 5 laps or something.
I mean,
BS, dude.
It's unfortunate. You have like the 4th or 5th fastest car on race pace.
In second place.
In second place, holding up your teammate.
Yeah.
In the best car on the grid.
So
Sergio eventually gets around. The race kind of goes on. Sergio starts getting overtaken by the Ferraris and McLarens. And then out of nowhere, like 25 laps in, Valtteri kind of just pulls off the side of the track at the end of T11, retiring with engine issues. The car was at the end of a straight, and they were having a lot of issues removing the car. So they had initially put out a VSC, and they were like, this is very dangerous, so let's put out a safety car. More danger was obviously spelled during said safety car. Lance Stroll just decides to have one of the worst moments in F1 machinery that I've ever seen from him, where he's not looking.
He's looking at the apex.
We're going into the hairpin. Lance Stroll's kind of, looking to the left or to the right. And, Daniel Ricciardo is right in front of him. And
all of this started, though, because of Alonso taking a bad line.
Okay. I didn't know that.
So that's the thing where Alonso got a slight lockup into the corner, and that forced everyone else to kind of brake more in that zone.
Yeah.
And I think it did just kind of snowball. Like Lance Stroll had to, or not Lance, but you had Danny. Danny kind of went wide to stay out, like
out of the way of Oscar. Yeah.
And so that I think Stroll just didn't see. And so
of course, because Lance wasn't looking at him.
He's not looking at the track either.
And what's most important in any scenario in an F1 car is you need to be paying attention to the driver that's ahead of you, especially, if you're trying to overtake. It is your responsibility to make a clean overtake. If you're the car behind in a safety car period, even at the end of a safety car period, you are following the pace of the car ahead. So if somebody like Daniel Ricciardo brakes, you need to be ready for that, especially in a hairpin. Like, you shouldn't be just going straight into the back of Daniel Ricciardo like that. So yeah, Lance went into the back of him, ended Danny's race. He was losing like 5 seconds a lap. He's like, screw it, we're retiring the car. But then Lance decides to go out and blame Daniel for the incident.
That was absolutely shocking.
And
he responded.
Danny was fuming. Like I saw the quote. It was only heard on F1 Live. It wasn't in any interviews. But Danny was like, now I've heard that Lance has said that this was my fault, and now I'm really pissed off about this. Like, honestly, F this guy.
Yeah, respectfully, dude. You have every right in the world to be upset, especially in that situation. But, like, just going to normal streets here in the United States, if you get rear-ended, 99% of the time, it's not your fault. It's the person behind you's fault. Who's driving into who? Lance Stroll's driving into Daniel Ricciardo. So in America, Lance, it's your fault.
Yeah, that was so stupid.
I will censor that. I don't care. It is your fault, dude.
Like that just pissed me off. It's just the fact that he decided to try and blame Daniel. I thought that was so stupid. But then at the end of the safety car period, the field once again gets away, and 20 seconds later, the safety car gets put out again. And I'm like, okay, what the heck has just happened? We get a replay that just pops up onto the TV out of nowhere. Kevin Magnussen has decided to pit maneuver Yuki Tsunoda into turn 4. Takes his right rear tire out, sends him into the grass. The dude's stranded. We've got to throw out another safety car. This one, fortunately, went way cleaner. Lando was in P2 after his long first stint and pit under the safety car. And after the safety car, was actually able to hold Sergio Perez back. This was another one of those classic, Sergio in the second best car. He's been doing well the whole race. And then we get to this midway or end point where Sergio's pace just drops off out of nowhere. Like Lando was towards the end of the race actually setting quicker laps than Sergio.
I think it was just tire and energy strategy. Personally,
that's definitely true.
I don't think there was like anything wrong with the car. Oscar, on the other hand, after the Stroll Ricciardo debacle, actually got tapped in the rear diffuser as well, and he missed out on about, I would say, like 7 or 8 seconds per lap just on that race
total
pace. Yeah, because I mean the diffuser is the most important part in getting downforce to the back of the car, and he immediately was like, yeah, I'm losing the back of the car on almost all of these turns. So really kind of sucks for him, but he did a fantastic job of keeping that car in that good position. Yeah. Lance Stroll also went and pitted immediately afterwards and faced a 10-second penalty for doing that. That kind of went over people's head, but I just...
Justified.
Yeah, I think
justified penalty.
It
Screw
makes
that.
sense.
But I think the thing that didn't go over a lot of people's heads was in this first safety car period. Aston Martin's like, all right, guys, we got Fernando. He's P7 right now.
Soft tires.
Let's chuck the soft tires on midway through the race and then pray for another safety car. Like that is what the strategy had to be. They're like, let's just have them get past a few drivers and then hope another safety car comes out. First of all, they're probably not expecting another safety car to come out 30 seconds before the first one, which just killed those tires even more. But also, that is one of the most bold strategies I have ever seen.
Absolutely.
And I almost wish it worked. Because somebody like Alonso deserves that to work. But then, funny enough, like after he pitted with 12, 13 laps to go to put the mediums on, he was so quick.
Oh my God. He said fastest lap after fastest lap after fastest
lap. Yeah, to go back through the field and eventually take, I think it was P7 off the top of my head.
P7 sounds correct. So,
yeah, it was such a good race for Alonso. It was just a great race weekend in general. Like so much action. I love the sprint race format. I agree that it shouldn't be happening every single weekend, but especially for a returning track, I love it.
All right. We're tired.
But we're going to make it through this. But we're going to
do this, and we're going to do it under the time limit of the 90-second song. All right. Do you want to start us off?
Top 5 or not 5?
All right.
We're firing these off quick. Number 1 spot in the top 5, we have the Shanghai International Circuit coming back. I think everybody's happy for a new track. I love it.
Number 2, we have the threat and idea of rain at a race.
It made sprint qualifying so good. McLaren being faster than the Ferraris is our 3rd point. That was really crazy, and I was super happy to see Lando take advantage of that.
You got both Haas's almost scoring points again.
Just incredible this weekend.
Just amazing.
And of course, Chad Lonzo in the rain, in the dry.
Waterbender, just the best. then not 5. We have Team LH for
Still we rise.
Kind of fumble in the bag this weekend.
Absolutely. Aston Martin's soft tire strategy, that obviously didn't work.
Yeah, and sticking with Aston Martin, you have the Canadian wannabe tennis star Lance Stroll.
Throwing into the back of Danny. Sauber pit stops. We still had a plus 5-second pit stop from Sauber this weekend. And this was some BS with you, Raven. Nico Rosberg's commentary making it onto the Nico
Rosberg's commentary,
that didn't make any sense to me. I love Nico Rosberg.
But it's just... doesn't sit right with me, but hey,
we did it in 90 seconds.
We did it.
Top 5 or top 5, baby.
That was a great segment. That's always just a fun energy, little vibes.
I need it. No F2 this week, no rally.
There was rally, but
there was rally. It was in Croatia.
Ended today, and just with how this weekend went, we will be talking about it next weekend as just something to talk about because there was a lot this weekend.
I was gonna say we had another major racing series racing this week. We had the World Endurance Championship racing at Imola this morning at 6 a.m. in the United States.
We went to bed at 4 o'clock last night, and
we set alarms
for 6:30. Both of us slept through them. Your phone died.
My phone died in the middle of the night.
I just slept through mine, and then 8 o'clock comes. I have my second round of alarms, and I'm like, we missed the start of the race. I turn it on. I see.
And it's pouring.
No. It was still dry. And it was when the Ferraris were 1, 2, 3 with Nick de Vries, I believe, in 4th. And then gets into 2nd. Then the rain comes. And the Ferraris were like,
not to pit.
We're going to stay in slicks. And then eventually they're like, it's not going to rain more. And then it rained a lot. And they got really screwed over.
Dude, there were so many instances. Even watching the highlights, both live and highlights, there were so many drivers just making the most tiny errors and going off the track. You had a lot of good overtakes through it as well. I think Aqua Minerale is probably my favorite section of corners in all of motorsport right now. I believe that's turn 8, 9, 10, 11 at Imola. I think it's a beautiful complex, but it's very, very hard to do correct in the wet, especially in an endurance car. Or like a hypercar or a GT car.
Sticking with just Imola for a second, kind of what I was talking about earlier. Just super glad they're getting rain. And, last year that was
the entire race got
flooded out. I did a whole project on the Italian river situation.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that not only does canceling the race not affect it hugely economically affects the area where the races happen, but it also is just a lot of fun for those people. And then when you don't have that event and you're facing, massive floods, terrible rain, food shortages, it just kind of declines the mentality and morale of the people. And so just really want this race to actually happen this year. And that would be my first time actually watching it. I've played the track in the game a lot. It's a really, really fun track. But
it was
IndyCar, MotoGP.
IndyCar actually happened this weekend today, but I was at work. I was dead. Raven and I essentially stayed up all night last night watching F1 and WEC, which I deem of higher importance than IndyCar. I love IndyCar. But you had Scott Dixon win at Long Beach this Sunday.
I don't know if we talked about this, but I find this stat just absolutely crazy. I don't know if this was last week because I don't know if I wrote it last week or not.
Yeah.
But 544 overtakes at the Formula E Misano E-Prix last week, 2 weeks ago. But 544 overtakes sounds so entertaining.
Dude, so I was seeing some highlights from it as well. There were sections on the track where the cars could go 5 wide. I was seeing on the first couple laps, at the end of the first lap, we're 5 wide on the main straight. It is incredible. I do hate Formula E cars. I'm gonna be dead honest. I hate how they sound. I think they look really cool. I don't know. It sounds like I'm crying
because it's not an engine. It's just,
funny enough,
it's energy just being transferred straight to the wheels. So
yeah,
you're not
I was going
getting
to say, funny enough, a WEC car actually sounds a lot like a Formula E car, but in a diet version. It sounds like a mix of if an F1 car and an FE car had a baby, it's a WEC car, in sound.
It's the jump starts, though.
Yeah.
The jump starts, I don't care what anyone says about those WEC cars, the jump starts sound so good.
Yeah. But, I think the racing in Formula E is really good, just because the cars were a lot smaller.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a lot more room to fight around. Dude, this is one of my biggest points in F1 is that we need to make the cars smaller again. It really aggravates me, but I believe with the 2026 regs, they should be a bit smaller again. So
April 20th, 1887, the first quote-unquote motor race was won by Georges Bouton, and it was on steam-powered quadricycle. And if that's a car, then so is Formula E.
All right, Raven, I don't think anybody was saying a Formula E car wasn't a car. Does it sound horrible? Yes, but...
Does steam-powered quadricycle racing sound way more intense and fun?
Absolutely.
That's the...
Where are they racing that at? Are we going up a Rouge on that?
10 miles per hour going up a giant hill. Sounds lovely. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for us here today on the gravel. You know, we got the other show. We have Good Morning Hockey coming out every single day this week.
I was going to say.
Produced by yours truly, but also we have Brendan behind the ones and twos, and then we have our great host, Tassos. Stanley Cup playoffs start, so it's a perfect time to come and check us out. We're going to get some cool guests to bring us up to date on a lot of the team situation and how this weekend has gone. But yeah, check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Pod, wherever you get your music or podcasts or videos or entertainment.
You'll see our faces there.
You'll see our faces.
Or you'll hear our beautiful voices.
Just give us 5 stars, subscribe. You know, you can click the subscribe button right here. If you want to watch another video, you can watch it right here for our video folks. And that's going to be it for us. So have a good one, everyone.
Try to keep it a little bit longer for you guys this week.
Gonna
go for longer content for you guys.
Hopefully some longer ones. This week was a little short, but we'll get it there. We're working towards it.
We're refining. Exactly. We appreciate you guys though.
Thank you guys so much. We'll see you guys next week.